Hello, I'm Sam,
And I'm Sam.
and we're the Sams.
We are the Sams.
So, part two, we wanted to talk about this hot topic between, it was an interview with Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade talking about, how their marriage started. And he stated, he wanted to be more of a supporter because when he came in, he was more like, a dictator, two drinks, trying to basically stifle who she was. But what stood out to me was he said, it's in their marriage, it's not where a man leads and the wife follows. And I found that to be interesting because I believe the man should lead, woman will follow, even though they have their great careers and things like that. But you don't have to, you can still lead and help support your wife in your marriage and help her flourish and grow. It was just interesting. What's your take, Sam?
What's my take? So I agree with you that I believe that a man can lead while still being extremely supportive of his wife in her career, her interests, her passions, etc. I don't think that leadership compromises the ability to recognize someone's gifts and help them flourish. I think what in my opinion, what I heard was just sort of like a very interesting description of how he assumed the role to be. I think, it's funny, like I can even break it down to like a project, right? Like, let's say you have a project and you don't ascribe a role per se, and people sort of fall into a space. And what I find is that there are certain things that I think preclude us to naturally fall into a certain space in terms of how we cooperate with each other. And to not have, I think in their dynamic, I'm just really fascinated in terms of like how things play out between them. Because I know for us, in terms of, our ability to cooperate with each other, it's like you have to identify certain lanes, strengths and lanes for people to operate in, so that as a unit, and that's the thing, I appreciate the fact that Gabrielle Union and even my wife, like I don't even need to, we can move it off of them and just talk about ourselves, and my wife appreciates who I am as an individual and vice versa. And yet when we decided to get married, you acknowledge that there's a part of yourself that you're going to have to let go of in order to make space for the other person.
Right.
Like if two people come together, then I can't have the same barrier that I have, because at some point I got to open it up to allow her to come in, so it's like you both have to give in the essence of two people coming together. I don't know how you do it as individuals, so
and I feel like as a woman, career oriented, you come in, you have a career, your house, car, whatever, you have all these accomplishments and that you got on your own, and then you come together with your partner, whoever it may be. And I don't feel it needs to be like, oh, we both wear the pants, I feel as though you as a man can and should still lead the family, and it still feel, how they say 50-50. Like, I don't feel as though you are dimming my light in any way if there is something that you're like, babe, we need to compromise on this, or this needs to be discussed. Like how he was saying, there was a reason why he said she needed to drink only 2 drinks. Well, there's a reason, you know. And I just feel like if your spouse can't check you, then nobody, like,
Right.
what's the point?
Right.
Because sometimes you have to be pulled to the carpet, and it's just like that is the person that is closest to you to be able to call you out and it be okay.
And the one thing I'll say in terms of, like, 'cause I know the conversation, even using the word submission, comes up, and it's like, it's kind of I don't even use the term trigger word, but it's a word that, like, I know causes a large reaction. But I think for us, and for those who I think have the ideas that we had in terms of marriage, you know, for us as believers, we're both submitting to the Lord first, you know, and so even in terms of, you know, my role as the man in the home, I have to demonstrate that submission to the Lord, and she witnesses that, you know, like without me demonstrating that and being the witness of it, you know, what is the opportunity for her to then, you know, understand, you know, how, and, you know, like, submission works for us in terms of what the cooperation is if I'm not cooperating, right? So, and those who aren't believers, it's like, you know, you have a vision for your marriage, you know, like, so you both submit to that. And I think through that, you both sort of have scenarios where you recognize that, hey, I'm the one, or, you know, whoever is that one that needs to throttle back because of the overall vision, and realizing that we are both in submission in this, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, so that's the part that I think is sometimes missed on folks, where they, you know, I think even that's what the kind of, I won't say, it kind of bothered me about Dwayne's ways
because if he's not leading, who is?
But it's even more about leadership. It's like the idea that it's just a one-way street. Like, that's just not what it means, and that's not how it's designed to be either. Like, that to me, I think, is like this narrative that keeps going out that's troubling, because marriage isn't a one-way street, you know? There is a large responsibility and role that is shared between both, you know, people. So all we're talking about is how best to cooperate with one another. And I, you know, for us, you know, based off of who we are as people, that's what works in our dynamic.
Right.
So we're not, like I said before, I'm just interested in seeing how that actually plays out, because I think that, you know,
because the thing is, before he said this, you look at them and they look fun. They look like they have fun together, and they have this like cohesion, but it's just peculiar to me, because I feel like, you know, you should marry your best friend. You know, you have fun, you laugh, you joke, but that person can still be able to pull you to the carpet if, you know, you're out of pocket.
And I'm not saying that she can't, but
Or
I
he
agree.
can't.
Or he can't.
He can't.
Right. And that's weird, because that's what makes it even stranger, because the example that he mentioned, like, seems like one where you should be able to do that.
Right.
Like, if there is a reason, then why are we tiptoeing around it? You know, so that's why, like, I just felt like the whole thing was just odd.
Yeah.
And I, you know, and again, what really concerned me though was sort of like what he was casting in terms of how the role works the other way, which I find is interesting, right?
What?
So it's like, hey, in our house, it's not like this, and he describes it one way, and he's like, it's kind of the other way, but it's not described that way.
I'm confused.
He was saying, what he was saying is that the man doesn't lead, and as he was describing what that was like in terms of like a dictatorship, and you know, she does what I say, blah 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 blah. He's like, it's not like that. She works even harder. So it's like, well, you know, it's almost like, well, it's either the man leads or he's supportive. It's like a man cannot be supportive in leading. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that just, it really bothered me. And how he was portraying that like it's one or the other. Right.
But if you think back, like, if I think about like my grandparents, where it's like you had the man that supported, he was the breadwinner, he led, stern hand. But if you think back, like, it really wasn't a supporting, you know, you follow your dreams, what are your goals?
Well, I mean, it depends on the structure, though, right? Like, was it a professional person. If you know, like what, like the times were different. So it's like I just it's and granted, I think what Dwayne Wade is talking about is to a time. Like this is 2021, and so that's not missed on me. And I think maybe we're old school, you know, in the sense of it. Like maybe that's a realization we're coming to. Like, oh, okay. Good thing we got married a few years ago.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, we ascribe to a little bit of a different doctrine, and we're cool. We're comfortable with it.
New marriage. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to have 3 drinks.
So.
But yeah, I mean, everybody's marriage is different.
That's right.
It's a career.
It is.
It's a career.
But the cool thing I think is like, even in everyone's marriage being different, I think we can stand on what ours is too and be comfortable to talk about that. You know, like I don't think that the same way Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle shouldn't have to tiptoe around the dynamics of the relationship, we shouldn't have to tiptoe around ours.
That is true.
So.
But yeah, marriage can be fun.
I think it's a lot of fun. Best decision ever made. So for all you young folk out there, I was a single man who, you know.
But don't marry willy-nilly. You should be friends.
I agree. That's a whole nother conversation.
Right. Yeah. You should be friends.
We'll
dive into that.
Next video.
We'll dive into that.
Who you should look for in a partner.
Right. Not a resume.
No, not a resume at all. Have a good night, folks.